Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Biss Knows Ball podcast. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at some Superflex Dynasty trades that actually happened in my league, and we're going to take a look whether it was fair or did the guy get fleeced. So, without further ado, here we go. So, we have the first trade that went through. So, here's the first trade. So, we have Tyler Higbee and the 110 in the 2025 rookie draft for TJ Hawkinson and a 2027 first. So let's take a look at the Higbee side. So the person who received Higbee is 32 years old. He only played 3 games last season, and he is now 2 years removed from his only tight end 1 finish, where he finishes the tight end 6. He's played 9 seasons and he's finished 1 year as a top 12 tight end. Not even top 5. He finishes as a tight end 6. Tyler Higbee, again, I wasn't crazy about getting him on my team. I wouldn't be like looking to trade for him, so I don't know if that was the motivation. So maybe the motivation was the 110 in the 2025 rookie draft. So trading away or getting Higbee is fine. 110 is actually the perfect position to get one of these highly touted tight ends in this draft. So you have Tyler Warren out of Penn State, you have Loveland out of Michigan, then you have Fannin out of Ball State. If you ever put on the tape of Fannin, he's just running over dudes, no matter who he played. I know he played at Ball State, but I think he played against Penn State. He played against some top level teams, and they just couldn't tackle him. He was just just running them over, which I love to see as a tight end. So I'm excited about Fannin to see where he goes and him in the NFL in general. So that's kind of where I would go in that 110 position. You might be looking at some of the lower tier running backs. Again, it's a super deep running back class. You might be looking at one of those lower tiered running backs, whether it be Scatterbo or Ollie Gordon or somebody like that. Maybe if Judkins falls to you, it's Superflex, so maybe somebody takes some quarterbacks in that first round. Judkins maybe at the back of the first, which would be lovely. But it's really that prime position to take one of those tight ends, depending on the landing spot again. Then the other side of it, so you have TJ Hawkinson. So TJ Hawkinson is 27 years old. Again, he missed most of the season or half of the season last year with injury. Hawkinson was a top 5 tight end in his previous 2 seasons, and has finished as a top 5 tight end in 3 of his 6 seasons that he's played in the NFL. So I think he has way more upside and potential than Higbee in the situation. He was on a 17-game pace for 68, 833, 68 receptions to 833 yards, which would have had him finish as a tight end 1 again. So again, he wouldn't have been top 5, but he would have finished as a tight end 1 last year if he put up those stats on that 17-game pace. So I think TJ Hawkinson, just player for player, is a better dynasty asset or fantasy football asset than Higbee is at this point in their careers, maybe always. So Hawkinson definitely, I think, has the bigger upside. I like that Minnesota offense. I like that Minnesota Vikings team a lot, and kind of what they're doing. If J.J. McCarthy can figure it out, again, there are you questions at quarterback for Hawkinson. He's got Justin Jefferson there, so he's definitely not the number 1. He's might be kind of competing with Jordan Addison for the second target on that team. But Addison looked good last year too, kind of took a step forward. But maybe J.J. McCarthy as really a rookie quarterback, right? He's in his second year, but didn't play at all last year. Maybe he'll lean on the tight end more. I like Hawkinson now that I'm talking through it. And then you have a 2027 first, which could be anything. It kind of reminds me of the meme from Family Guy where Peter was like, whoa, Lois, a boat is a boat. But it's like the 2027 first round pick, that could be anything, even a boat. So in 2027, the crown jewel of that 2027 draft, you're hearing it not first, but in case you're thinking forward in 2 years, the crown jewel in that 2027 draft is going to be Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State. He's eligible to come into the NFL draft in 2027, his junior year. He's only a freshman this year. So people will be salivating over the prospects of getting Jeremiah Smith, but you better have the 101 in the 2027. And then you have, so that's that side. So was this fair, or did our boy get fleeced? In my opinion, this particular trade, I believe the person that received Higbee and the 110 got fleeced. I would much rather have the Hawkinson and the 2027 first than I would Higbee and the back of the first in this year's draft. But listen, people act the way they want to act. They kind of do what they think is best for their dynasty team. I would never fault an owner for making a trade. Each owner kind of runs it differently or has a different vision for their team or whatever. But I think you could have gotten a better deal, I think you could have gotten a better deal than giving up Hawkinson in the 2027 first and Higbee in the back of the first this year. But just my opinion. So I'm sorry. I'm not going to name you by name, but I'm sorry, bud. You got fleeced in that deal. So the second trade that we're going to talk about. Which actually involved the person that got fleeced in the first deal, in my opinion. So here's the second. The second deal was Ladd McConkey. Okay. Ladd McConkey made my list, or made my guest list, as top 5 wide receiver under the age of 25. And the 103 for Dalton Kincaid, Drake May, again, this is a Superflex Dynasty League, and a 2026 second round pick. So here we go. Ladd finished as wide receiver 13 last year. He only played 16 games, so he missed the game. So would he have finished as a wide receiver 1? Maybe. But he's only 23 years old. He's tied to Herbert, yes, who's shown that he can be one of the top QBs in the league. He was top 25 in yards per catch. If we look at the back half of the season, so the second half of the season from week 10 on, because it usually takes these rookie wide receivers a few games or a little bit to kind of catch on to the speed in the NFL and really produce. So we really look at that's why we love to see that second year bump for these wide receivers, but really in that second half of their rookie season is when they tend to come on. So if we take a look at the second half of the season for Ladd, so from week 10 on, he was on pace for 98, 1502, and 9, which would have had him finish as the wide receiver 4 in PPR fantasy, which is kind of crazy to think about. So he would finish in between Amon-Ra, so behind Amon-Ra, and in front of Brian Thomas last year. So you remember, so just think about that. So think about Ladd, substitute Ladd for Brian Thomas Jr. And how do you feel about it, right? So I love Ladd. I don't love Ladd as much as maybe my guest, and you'll see that in the episode when I release it. But yeah, so Ladd is exciting. He put up a great rookie season. So now let's take a look at the 2025 103, which is the other half. So Ladd and the 103. So you're going to have tons of options at this pick, right? So depending on how the draft falls, you might be looking at, Tet, who we talked about, Cam Ward. You might be looking at Omarion Hampton, who is one of he's no Ashton Genty, don't get me wrong, but Omarion Hampton, someone in that range. So you're looking at a good chance to get a dynasty fantasy football starter for the next few years for sure, right? Depending on landing spots and depending how the kind of the rookie draft falls. But so I'm fine with that side. Like that's a great value for Ladd and the 103. So let's take a look at the other side. So you have Dalton Kincaid, who's 25 years old. He missed 4 games, but even the games that he played last year, he was very disappointing. He had that awful drop in the playoffs. Like, I'll try not to talk about it in case he sees it, but that drop in the playoffs was awful. I honestly wonder if that destroys his mental state for the rest of his career. Like, I don't know if that drop is a drop that would haunt some people. So I'm interested in seeing the psychological effects that drop has on his career going forward. And if it falls off, you heard it here first. I'm worried about touchdowns in that offense. So even that was his second year last year. Even his rookie season when he finishes a tight end 1, he only had 2 touchdowns. So his touchdown upside in that offense, I don't think is there. Like I said, like the Bills, their RB1 is Josh Allen. So when they get around the goal line, it's Josh Allen time. They have James Cook there. Talk about Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman, if he can figure it out in year 2, could be a red zone threat. I don't see Kincaid. Like, coming into last year, we thought Kincaid had the chance to be a team's top 1 or 2 read in the offense, which is what you're looking for at the tight end position to have them really be fantasy relevant. I don't think that's a thing anymore. I don't see him as a top tight end fantasy option going forward. He'll probably be a solid tight end, but I worried about his touchdown upside, and a lot of times those tight ends rely on the touchdowns to be fantasy relevant. Excuse me. Then you have Drake May, which I talked about in another video, but he's 23 years old. He has a great rushing floor. He finished the year his rookie season with 421 rushing yards. Now, I worried about his lack of weapons. So they just signed Stephon Diggs, which gives May a huge bump in my eyes. Like, people forget that before he went down to injury last year, like, Stephon Diggs was not washed in Houston. Like, everybody word coming from Buffalo that, oh, he's done, he's washed. He looked good last year. Now, how will he come back from the injury? We'll see. But Stephon Diggs, I think, is a big bump for Drake May and upgrading that wide receiver room. I had concerns before, but Stephon Diggs helps a lot in this situation. So shout out to Drake May, and shout out to the person getting Drake May. I still have concerns that he'll be a elite Superflex fantasy starter in 2 years. But like I said, Stephon Diggs helps this year for sure. And then you have the 2026 second round pick. On average, second round picks in rookie drafts hit about 30% of the time. They have a 30% hit rate, which isn't fantastic. So we have a 10-team league. You're looking at 3 of those picks out of those 10 that will be respectable fantasy assets for you in the future. So I mean, it's not great, but so final takeaways. The first trade, Higbee in the 110 for Hockenson in the 2027 first. I would take Hockenson in the 2027 first. Bro, you got fleeced. Takeaway 2 or trade 2. So we have Ladd McConkey in the 103 for Kincaid, Drake May, and a 2026 second. I think that's a fair trade. You both did well in that trade. I think you both helped your team. One was super strong at wide receiver, so was able to ship a wide receiver, and the other one was looking for the QB, like Drake May. So they both got assets to help their team. I think both are in contention this year. Again, I'm not going to name names, but I think that was a good trade. The first trade, not so much. But I think the second trade after you got fleeced was a fair trade, and kudos to both of you. So I hope you're following along. I hope you're enjoying the content. If you want me to review any trades, or if you want me to review any teams, or let me know what you want to see. Okay. Make sure you're following at Biss Knows Ball on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And it's at Birdie Biscuits on X. So if you're on X and you like to do some reading, follow me at Birdie Biscuits. I'm putting out some good content there too. So thanks y'all for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.